Imagine this situation. You're awake at 3 in the morning, gazing at the ceiling, and your thoughts are spiraling through every conceivable financial catastrophe that could occur tomorrow. Your vehicle could malfunction, your computer might fail, you could lose your employment. Perhaps your pet requires urgent medical care. Does this resonate? Well, what if I informed you there's a particular dollar figure that could eliminate nearly all of these late-night worry sessions and fundamentally revolutionize how you move through existence? Most individuals assume financial targets are merely random numbers that wealthy people invented to make everyone else feel insufficient. But here's something that might astonish you. There's genuine psychology and mathematics behind why specific amounts of capital create dramatic transformations in your daily experience. And the first genuine transformation point isn't $1 million or even $100,000. It's $10,000. My name is Peter, and I dedicate considerable time contemplating money, human psychology, and why certain individuals seem to navigate through financial obstacles, while others are perpetually stressed about their account balance. If you've ever questioned what it genuinely feels like to have different amounts of capital saved, and more significantly, how each target alters your decision-making process, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if it helps provide clarity for you. Now, before we explore what makes $10,000 so remarkable, let me illustrate what existence looks like without it. You recognize that sensation when you're at the supermarket and you're mentally calculating whether you can manage the premium brand cereal or if you need to maintain with the store version that tastes like packaging. Or when your friends propose going out to eat and you have to generate some creative excuse because you can't acknowledge that $25 for a meal would disrupt your complete budget for the week. This is the reality for countless individuals who are existing paycheck to paycheck. Every financial choice becomes a careful calculation. Every unexpected cost feels like a potential disaster. You're constantly playing defense with your capital instead of being able to execute proactive selections about your future. But here's where things become fascinating. There's a particular psychological phenomenon that occurs when you accumulate your first $10,000, and it has nothing to do with being able to purchase expensive items. In reality, most individuals who reach this target don't dramatically alter their spending patterns at all. The genuine transformation is much more subtle and much more powerful. The first thing that transforms is your relationship with risk. When you possess zero savings, every choice feels dangerous. Accepting a new position, relocating to a different city, or even organizing a trip becomes this massive source of stress because you recognize that one incorrect move could leave you financially devastated. But when you possess $10,000 positioned in your account, suddenly these identical choices feel manageable. You're not necessarily going to resign from your position tomorrow and become a professional entertainer, but you might finally have the confidence to request that advancement you've been contemplating for months. You might be willing to invest in yourself by accepting a course or certification that could enhance your earning capability. The safety cushion doesn't make you careless, but it does provide you permission to think beyond merely surviving until the next payment. There's also something remarkable that occurs to your brain chemistry when you observe a 5-figure balance in your banking account for the first time. Neuroscientists have discovered that financial stability actually decreases cortisol levels, which is your body's primary stress hormone. This means that reaching $10,000 doesn't merely alter your finances, it genuinely alters how your body responds to daily obstacles. Consider the last time you experienced a minor vehicle issue. If you're existing paycheck to paycheck, that warning indicator might as well be a countdown clock to financial catastrophe. You're immediately stressed about how you're going to finance repairs, whether you'll need to charge it, or if you'll have to request money from family. But when you possess $10,000 saved, that identical warning indicator becomes a simple frustration. You're irritated, certainly, but you're not panicked. This transformation from panic to mild irritation might seem modest, but it has cascade effects throughout your complete existence. When you're not constantly concerned about capital, you execute better choices in general. You rest better. You're more productive at employment. You're more patient with your family and friends. Financial stress influences every aspect of human behavior, and removing that stress releases mental resources that you can redirect toward genuinely improving your circumstance. But here's something that most individuals don't recognize about the $10,000 target. The majority of the advantage doesn't originate from spending the capital. It originates from knowing the capital is present. This is what financial specialists describe as the emergency reserve effect, and it's probably among the most underrated concepts in personal finance. An emergency reserve isn't genuinely about the emergencies. It's about the tranquility that originates from knowing you can manage emergencies. Most individuals who construct $10,000 in savings never genuinely spend it on emergencies. Instead, they spend it on possibilities. They invest in education. They launch businesses, they relocate to superior locations, or they simply possess the mental capacity to concentrate on increasing their income because they're not constantly concerned about fundamental survival. There's also a confidence element that's difficult to measure but impossible to overlook. When you recognize you possess capital in the account, you present yourself distinctly. You negotiate superior terms, you're more willing to decline from poor arrangements because you're not desperate. This confidence often results in superior employment opportunities, superior relationships, and superior life outcomes in general. Now you might be considering that $10,000 sounds like an unachievable amount to save, particularly if you're currently struggling to allocate even $100 monthly. But here's what's fascinating about human psychology. The most difficult aspect isn't saving the capital itself. The most difficult aspect is developing the identity of someone who saves capital. Most individuals approach saving like it's a temporary restriction. They reduce expenses dramatically for several months, save aggressively, and then exhaust themselves and return to their previous spending patterns. But the individuals who successfully reach $10,000 don't think of saving as a temporary sacrifice. They think of it as becoming a different category of person. This identity transformation is essential because it influences every financial choice you execute. When you perceive yourself as someone who saves capital, you begin noticing opportunities to decrease expenses that you never observed before. You become more creative about locating additional income sources. You begin thinking long-term instead of merely focusing on immediate satisfaction. The beautiful thing about this process is that it becomes simpler as you advance. Saving your first $1,000 is brutal. It demands significant lifestyle alterations and constant willpower. But saving your second $1,000 is noticeably simpler because you've already developed the patterns and mindset. By the time you're working toward your fifth or $6,000, the process feels almost automatic. There's also a mathematical reality that makes $10,000 particularly powerful. This amount of capital can manage the vast majority of unexpected costs that derail individuals financially. Vehicle repairs, medical expenses, employment loss, family emergencies. Most of these circumstances can be managed with below $10,000. This means that once you reach this target, you're effectively protected from most of the financial disasters that maintain individuals trapped in the paycheck-to-paycheck cycle. But perhaps the most significant alteration that occurs when you save your first $10,000 is how you begin thinking about capital itself. Instead of viewing capital as something that merely disappears from your payment every month, you begin perceiving it as a tool that multiplies your options. Before you possess savings, capital feels scarce and finite. Every dollar spent is a dollar vanished permanently. But when you possess $10,000 functioning as your financial foundation, you begin to comprehend that capital can genuinely create more capital. This is where individuals begin getting interested in concepts like investing, additional ventures, and passive income. Not because they suddenly became financial experts, but because they finally possess the mental capacity to think beyond merely covering their fundamental expenses. When you're not constantly concerned about housing payment, you can begin wondering about retirement vehicles. When you're not stressed about food expenses, you can begin investigating market investments. Here's something that might astonish you. The individual with $10,000 saved is genuinely closer to financial independence than someone with zero savings, even if that second individual earns twice as much capital. Why? Because the saver has developed the most significant skill in wealth construction, which isn't earning capital, it's retaining capital. You likely recognize individuals who generate six-figure salaries, but are somehow constantly broke. They operate expensive vehicles, reside in luxurious apartments, and consume at restaurants that charge $20 for a salad, but they possess no savings whatsoever. Meanwhile, you might recognize someone who generates $40,000 yearly, but has managed to accumulate substantial savings by being intentional about their spending. The distinction isn't income, it's mindset. And reaching $10,000 in savings is like an intensive course in developing the correct financial mindset. You learn to distinguish between desires and necessities. You become skilled at locating ways to decrease expenses without feeling deprived. Most significantly, you develop the patience to postpone satisfaction, which is probably the single most valuable financial skill anyone can learn. Now let's discuss what $10,000 can genuinely do for you in practical terms. First, it manages almost any vehicle repair short of requiring a completely new engine. Most automotive emergencies cost between $500 and $3,000. With $10,000 in the account, vehicle issues transform from financial disasters to minor frustrations. Medical emergencies become manageable as well. Even without excellent insurance, most urgent care visits, emergency facility trips, or minor procedures fall within this range. You're not going to manage major surgery with $10,000, but you can manage the vast majority of health issues that appear unexpectedly. Employment loss, which is probably the most frightening financial scenario for most individuals, becomes something you can genuinely survive. $10,000 provides you roughly 3 to 6 months of space to locate new employment, depending on your expenses. That's sufficient time to be selective about your next possibility instead of desperately accepting the first offer that appears. But here's where it becomes genuinely fascinating. Possessing $10,000 doesn't merely protect you from disasters. It genuinely creates possibilities that wouldn't exist otherwise. Perhaps you hear about a certification program that could enhance your salary by $10,000 yearly, but it costs $2,000 upfront. Without savings, this is impossible. With your financial foundation, it's an obvious investment. Or perhaps a friend mentions they're launching a business and seeking a small investor. Without savings, you can only wish them success. With $10,000, you possess the option to participate in something that could potentially alter your financial trajectory. I'm not stating you should invest your complete emergency reserve in your acquaintance's cryptocurrency scheme, but possessing options feels incredibly distinct from possessing no options at all. The psychological influence extends beyond merely financial choices as well. When you possess capital saved, you rest better. And I mean this genuinely. Studies demonstrate that individuals with emergency reserves report significantly superior sleep quality than those without savings. It appears financial stress is among the leading causes of insomnia, and eliminating that stress has immediate health advantages. Your relationships improve as well. Financial stress is cited as among the primary causes of separation and family conflict. When you're not constantly concerned about expenses, you possess more emotional resources to invest in the individuals you care about. You're less irritable, less anxious, and more present in your interactions with others. There's also something to be stated for the confidence enhancement that originates with possessing capital in the account. You enter employment interviews distinctly when you recognize you don't desperately require the position. You're more likely to negotiate salary and benefits because you're not operating from a place of fear. This confidence often results in superior employment offers and higher compensation, creating a positive reinforcement cycle that accelerates your financial advancement. But let's address the challenging topic. $10,000 might sound like an enormous amount of capital if you're currently existing paycheck to paycheck. The positive news is that you don't need to save it all immediately. In reality, attempting to save too aggressively often fails because it's not sustainable. The most successful savers I recognize started with ridiculously modest amounts, perhaps $50 monthly, perhaps even $25. The essential element is consistency, not the magnitude of the initial contribution. Once you construct a pattern of saving something every month, you can gradually increase the amount as your income expands or as you locate ways to decrease expenses. Here's a reality verification that might motivate you. The typical American allocates above $3,000 yearly on coffee, dining out, and convenience purchases. That's not even counting significant expenses like vehicle payments or entertainment subscriptions. If you could redirect merely 1/3 of that spending towards savings, you'd possess your $10,000 in below 3 years. I'm not proposing you should never enjoy a coffee or consume at a restaurant, but I am indicating that most individuals possess more flexibility in their budgets than they recognize. The distinction between someone who constructs savings and someone who doesn't usually originates from awareness and intentionality, not income stage. The multiplying effect of possessing $10,000 extends far beyond the immediate financial stability it provides. It alters how you think about risk, how you approach possibilities, and how you organize for the future. Most significantly, it proves to yourself that you're capable of achieving financial objectives, which creates momentum for even larger accomplishments down the path. When you possess your first $10,000 saved, you begin thinking distinctly about your next $10,000, and then the next. Before you recognize it, you're on a trajectory toward genuine financial independence. Not because you received fortune or inherited capital, but because you developed the patterns and mindset that make wealth construction inevitable. The transformation that occurs when you save your first $10,000 isn't merely about the capital itself. It's about becoming the category of individual who possesses capital saved. And that identity transformation creates cascade effects that extend into every corner of your existence in ways you probably never anticipated. Let's discuss something called decision exhaustion, which sounds like corporate terminology nonsense, but is genuinely a real psychological phenomenon. Every day you execute thousands of tiny financial choices. Should I purchase the generic pasta or the premium brand? Can I manage to obtain lunch today, or should I prepare a sandwich? Is it worth financing premium fuel, or will regular be acceptable? Each of these micro choices burns mental resources. And by the conclusion of the day, you're exhausted from constantly calculating whether you can manage things. But here's what occurs when you possess $10,000 in the account. Suddenly 90% of these daily financial choices become irrelevant. You're not selecting between generic and premium brand pasta because you're concerned about your account. You're selecting based on what you genuinely prefer. This might seem like a modest thing, but imagine how much mental resources you'd release if you stopped having to execute survival-based calculations 50 times daily. I recognize someone who informed me that the first time they entered a supermarket after reaching $10,000 in savings, they almost became emotional. Not because they went excessive and purchased luxury items and expensive drinks, but because they recognized they could concentrate on what they genuinely wanted to consume instead of what they could manage to consume. That's a level of liberty most individuals don't even recognize they're missing until they experience it. Now let's get genuine about something that financial advisors don't constantly emphasize. Possessing $10,000 saved doesn't make you wealthy. It doesn't mean you can resign from your position and become a professional beach athlete. You're still going to think twice before purchasing a $1,000 gadget you don't genuinely require. But what it does provide you is space. And space is the foundation of every proper financial choice. When you're not gasping for financial air, you can genuinely think strategically about your capital instead of merely reacting to whatever crisis appears next. Perhaps you notice that your vehicle insurance renewal is approaching, and you genuinely possess time to investigate around for superior rates instead of merely accepting whatever they transmit you. Perhaps you recognize that your phone plan is ridiculously expensive, and you can transition to something more affordable without concerning about the transition fees. These optimizations might only preserve you $50 or $100 monthly, but when you're not stressed about capital, you're more likely to notice these possibilities. And those modest optimizations multiply across time into serious savings that make your next financial objective even more achievable. Here's something fascinating about human psychology that most individuals don't recognize. When you possess zero savings, every dollar feels precious because losing it means you're one step closer to financial catastrophe. But when you possess $10,000 saved, individual dollars begin feeling less precious, which genuinely makes you more willing to allocate capital on things that could increase your earning capability. This seems contradictory, but it's incredibly significant. The individual with no savings might skip a $50 networking event because $50 feels like substantial capital when you're existing paycheck to paycheck. But the individual with $10,000 saved might attend that identical event and finish up meeting someone who offers them a position that compensates $5,000 more yearly. The safety cushion doesn't make you careless with capital, but it does make you more willing to invest in possibilities. I have observed this occur countless times. Individuals who construct their first substantial savings account often experience a sudden acceleration in their career expansion. Not because possessing capital directly results in advancements, but because financial stability provides them the confidence to accept chances that broke individuals simply can't manage to accept. Let's discuss something nobody mentions in personal finance articles, but everyone experiences in genuine existence: the social dynamics of capital. When you're constantly stressed about your financial circumstance, it influences how you interact with other individuals in subtle but significant ways. You might avoid social circumstances because you can't manage to participate. You might feel embarrassed about your financial struggles and become withdrawn. You might even develop resentment toward friends who seem more financially stable. So there you possess it. $10,000 isn't merely a number in your banking account, it's a complete psychological transformation that touches every aspect of your existence. From resting better at night, to entering employment interviews with genuine confidence instead of desperation, this target creates a domino effect that most individuals never perceive approaching. If you're currently examining an account balance that resembles more like a phone number from the 1950s, don't panic. Begin modest, maintain consistency, and remember that the individual you become while saving your first $10,000 is infinitely more valuable than the capital itself.